Hello, world, and welcome to Pardon the Politics Podcast, Season 2, Episode 12. I am your co host, Jeezy, along with my brother and my partner in politics, Manny. My brother, what is good with you today?
I can tell you what's not good. My March Madness bracket, definitely not good.
Hey, bro, I understand that. I was actually doing fairly well. Um, Up until I took a couple of gambles, and the first one being Yale. I thought the smart boys were gonna pull out a strategic win from a logical perspective and advance to the next round, but they failed me.
But look, I've been looking at these numbers. I've been doing some analysis,
Yeah.
and how dare these teams with better players and better coaching beat these teams that don't have that? That's not supposed to happen. Where are my
Bruh,
upsets? Where?
I need them. This
Give me
is
one or
crazy.
two.
Man, it has been crazy. My bracket's done. I went from being number one on ESPN to ranked 4 million. And I think I've made up some ground now because I think I'm at about 2.8 million. So there's
Okay.
hope.
I I stopped after the first day. I said, "Yep, well, this dream is
Yeah.
not in the cards for me this year."
I did better this year than I've done in previous years. Normally by the first game, I'm like, well,
Yep.
time to tear up the bracket. I made it until like late in the night for the on the first day. So I'm like, okay, we getting somewhere. We getting
Yeah.
somewhere. So man, sorry about your bracket.
Yeah. I mean,
Hopefully, to our listeners, you've had better success with your brackets than it sounds like we have. So, if your bracket's shot and it's terrible, you can put it
welcome
aside
to
and
the
you can
club,
pay,
man.
yeah, you can pay attention to the pod now. So, welcome to Pardon the Politics, where all of our brackets are busted. So, welcome to the listeners. We're so glad to have you join us for this episode. Hope all is well. Thank you for tuning in, and we're going to jump right into our first topic for the day. So that topic is on March the 20th. Our good buddy Donald Trump signed an executive order which he initiated the process of dismantling the U.S. Department of Education. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we have a clip
Yeah.
that we have from him signing this executive order.
Today, we take a very historic action that was 45 years in the making. In a few moments, I will sign an executive order to begin eliminating the Federal Department of Education once and for all. Should I do this?
Yeah. So he did a thing.
That Sharpie has not ran out of ink yet.
Yet. I
He
just
should
wanted
have
those Sharpie budget.
he should have an endorsement from Sharpie, bro.
I mean, at this point,
At this point,
because they firing him off like rampant.
bro,
But here's my other thing from this sign in. Y'all set up like a mock classroom. Okay,
bro.
cool. But shout out to those desks. Look,
Hey, yeah.
I took some of the best naps of my life
Hey,
on
bro.
them desks.
They're on a classroom desk and on a long bus ride on a mid temperature day.
Mm.
them leather seats have seen my forehead many a times, and the side of that window too. But yeah,
Big old red
he's
spot.
oh, bro, that's how you know you've been sleeping good. You had a window slightly cracked. But in this mock classroom that he made up, where he showcased that he knew how to spell his name, and the children were able to scribble, scrabble, whatever. They were able to put, because I believe each kid had like a copy of the executive order, and it was almost as if they signed it themselves. But in the key aspects of this executive order, he aimed to decentralize the responsibilities of the Department of Education. So this reallocates essential functions of the Department of Education to other federal agencies. So I believe like the Small Business Administration were now going to be in charge of like student loans.
But that I
Um,
think that's even alleged at this point
yeah.
because they got handed over to them and they're like, whoa, 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 we don't want this. And he's like, oh, this is going to the treasury. And like, whoa, 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 we don't want this. Not on our books.
Here's what I don't understand. If you're going to decentralize these responsibilities and then you're going to put them on other agencies, but you've cut other agencies as far as the staffing they have, I don't understand how this is going to be handled. I think even down to like the programs for students with disabilities, he's trying to move that over to Health and Human Services. It seems like a lot.
Well,
He won't.
before we do that, I'm just proud he was able to like map it to things that kind of made sense.
I mean, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Like, you know
It-
what? It
I
Health
see
and
what.
Human Service, I can see that connection. Like
Yeah.
student loans, that's money, small business, treasury. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, no. Like,
Yeah. Also in this, man, he's looking to continue funding that he says that won't be disrupted, which is critical funding for programs such as Title One for low income schools and Pell Grants. He's saying that those things will still be able to function, but ultimately it all comes down to workforce reduction.
yeah.
He's already saying that they need a reduction, and he's offering incentives as he's done with all the other agencies where there's early retirement or resignation with plans to cut approximately half of the staff. So in this thing, when he talked about getting rid of the Department of Education, I was in Maryland this past week, and I thought it was wild that he made the comment, uh, essentially saying this is why the department needs to be shut down. He pointed out Baltimore, and he said in his comments that children in Baltimore in the public school system, there was 0% of children that could do arithmetic. And while I'm sure we all know that in certain communities, certain areas that numbers can be low,
Yeah.
I doubt very seriously that you're telling me that there is not a single child in Baltimore that could do two
Bro, not
plus.
one. All of Baltimore?
Bro,
All of it? Not one?
when he said 0%, I was like, "That come on now,
Come on
that
now.
you tell me there ain't one kid."
Just one. Right. The man looking around like what you call it? Lot. Bro, there's
Bro,
gotta be I got at least 10. There's
bro,
gotta be
that was
10 down here, Lord.
that's exactly what I was about to say. What is this God trying to find one righteous person and he only can find Noah and his family?
Right.
Like,
There's
Trump, like, be real, bro.
bro.
That's the stuff that if you want to dismantle the Department of Education, okay, cool, but don't lie.
Don't
And
lie.
on those poor children, kill their hope and say, "I thought I knew math, but apparently Donald Trump told me that I don't." So,
Bro, kids walking around their house with 100% on their math test. Like
bro, can you imagine sitting on the floor watching TV, watching the news, and you hear the president tell you that nobody where you live knows how to do math, and you're like, I'm on the math club, bro. I just got first place at the math fair. Like,
bro, we just smoked Arlington High in this math competition. But what you mean I
Donald
don't know
Trump,
math?
but Donald Trump, I know trigonometry. No, not even you. You don't know it. But in this, um, there's been some support of dismantling the Department of Education, and I want to just give some details. For those of you that may not know, I want to say the Department of Education was created. I want to say it was during Jimmy Carter's era. I want to say
Yeah.
it was 19. I got it.
Hmm.
1979. Jimmy
Yeah,
Carter
Carter.
signed the Department of Education Organization Act into law. So when I thought about that, Manny, for as long as we've been alive, we have functioned under the guidance, I will say, or the governance of the Department of Education. I don't know a time without the department. So my question is, what does this look like? I don't know what the country looked like at that time because I wasn't born. But what does that look like not having the Department of Education in our country?
I don't I don't know, and I guess we're all about to find out here in a little bit. But so the desire around this, my
Hmm.
answer on this is twofold. The desire of this is to shift education back to the states and give states more control of what they're doing. And cool, like, but when we're looking at a global economy for now,
Yeah.
who knows where we are 2 years from now, but with a global competing economy, and there always being a concern that American students may be starting to fall behind of our peers in China and peers in
Hmm.
India. Like, so I guess my question there is like, how is taking this going to help? What I always saw the Department of Education is not only a funding and a money execution machine for the
Yeah.
states, but I also saw it from a standpoint of laying the foundation to say, hey, y'all, American students will know X.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
this is the base ground. And then you, in returning that to the states, how do you have that cooperation? So
Yeah.
I live in North Carolina and I decide to move to, Colorado.
Yeah.
How does that work for my kids' education? Where, okay, so as you move into the state, had you been coming from these states, well, that's really a second grade education, but you're coming from these states, that's a fifth grade education.
Yeah.
So like, how do we reconcile that? And not saying it's not possible.
Yeah.
And again, the overarching goal that Trump declared it was, to return a lot of these decisions back down to the states.
Yeah.
But the second part that we've brought up several times over these first, I don't even know how many days slash years we've been in this this new administration at this point.
Yeah.
But I I I hear about the program cuts. I hear about the personnel layoffs that we're seeing.
Yeah.
But I'm not hearing they're like, hey, we're going to stop spending this money. So is money still going to get handled? So is the money that we were
Yeah.
going to give to Pell Grants instead of going to the Department of Education, that's now going to the small business or treasury to help them administer it. So I'm not hearing funding cuts. And this is why I'm not too overly anxious right now. I'm deeply, deeply concerned. But
Yeah.
it's like they said, we keep seeing all of these cuts. What are we redoing? What are we doing with the money?
Yeah.
We've said that, hey, we're going to do it like this. We're going to send it over here. We're going to send it over here. Where we want all this to run better, but are we actually going to get it? I think North Carolina, if you look at our budget, I think we get about $1 billion
Yeah.
every year for education from the feds. Now, $1 billion is a lot,
Yeah.
but still, North Carolina covers a big bulk of that. So it is definitely going to be really, really painful. I think if this now becomes a situation where they're cutting off funding as well, just in North Carolina, there's a lot of concerns definitely around, and I would say across the nation around special education and those programs and how will that money flow and what the ultimate reaction will be. I think you'll see some states that say, "Oh, budget shortfall. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to pull it out of our reserves to like cover this." Like that's something I think North Carolina can do because we are a state that consistently puts money in a rainy day account. But if you're looking at schools in Nebraska, I have
Yeah.
no idea how much money that they get from the feds, but they're already dealing with some impact to their economy because of the crops and the impact because of the
Hmm.
immigration executive orders. We start seeing those. So do you tax people more?
Yeah.
And I think it gets real interesting to how people respond to that. And then I think you see other things like the civil rights and Title Ones and those other regulations that would potentially flow to Department of Justice.
Yeah.
do they have time to be dealing with these very specialized roles or specialized rules that need to be enforced? And then the last piece, he just kind of put a cherry on top. Trump, you can't get rid of the Department of Education. Like, you can start taking away responsibilities, but Congress has to move to dismantle it and
Yeah.
truly dismantle it.
And I don't
So
think they
what does
have
that look
they
like?
and I don't think they have the votes to even do that. But I think that's why what Trump is kind of instructing Linda McMahon to do is essentially get it to as close as being dismantled as possible within his legal scope. But my concern with this, because I understand the pros, right? Parents won't, which my wife's a teacher, and this is one thing that really bothers me because when I hear a lot of people that support this the dismantling of the Department of Education, a lot of it I hear are from parents wanting more say so, and from having a wife who is a teacher, the involvement and engagement that parents have in their children's education is very low. So it's crazy to me that people say I want more control, but if you go to any teacher and ask them the involvement they have from parents, they will tell you that the majority of their students, they will see them on open house if they see them, and they will not hear from the parents anymore at all unless the child is failing their grade. So, where is the care that you say, oh, I want so much choice, I want so much say so in what's going on when you're not even present to begin with? So, I think that that's a bunch of hogwash. I'm pulling a good old country word out to keep it clean, to keep it PG. I believe it's a bunch of hogwash that these people say that they want more control over what their children are reading, and I get it. I understand. But in my opinion, be less worried about little Johnny reading a book that got two dads in it and worry about why your kid can't count to 20.
Bro,
If your kid can't count to
facts.
20
Bro, you
and
got
can't,
bigger fish.
you got bigger fish to fry than him worrying about why there's two dads in this book.
Well, and then on top of that, the big boogeyman of education right now, critical race theory. That if we're being honest
Yeah.
and being real about it, critical race theory is a college. I will say
Mm-hmm.
college at minimum.
Yeah.
From my true understanding, or law school level theory.
Yeah. Yes.
Your
Yes.
child is not reading that in first grade.
And please stop saying that they're brainwashing these elementary kids to hate white people. I want that to stop. My wife is an elementary teacher. There is no teaching the same Black history and civil rights things that I learned in school is the same stuff that they're learning. They didn't add any more people in. There is no pledge that you have to hate yourself because you're white and somehow, bro. Please stop. Like half of the I ain't even gonna say that because I don't want to get the pot in trouble. I was about to get on. I was about to get my bag. But let me reel it back in. But this control that they want to have, I understand, but where was that before this? These parents never showed up and cared about having a choice of what their kids were doing until Donald Trump and his people put a scope on critical
Yeah.
race theory and all of these things, and now they want you. You hadn't showed up before, so I have a problem with that. But on the con side of this, you kind of hinted at some of it. For one, my problem with the dismantling of the Department of Education, which stated Trump can't do. He has to go through Congress, which I believe that Congress is working to get the votes if necessary to do what they need to do. But I believe they need like 8 or 9 Democrats or something like that, and I don't think that's gonna happen.
I
Um,
don't know. I
but who
don't know.
knows?
I don't know.
Who knows?
I don't know because we don't seen everything already.
I mean, yeah. at this point. But one of the concerns I have about this is the loss of national education standards, which is what you
Yeah,
hinted at before.
yeah,
And I've said it, and I believe you've said it as well on previous episode. But the Department of Education helps set guidelines for our students nationwide. I believe wholeheartedly that there are a lot of different countries, I mean, excuse me, states that we have here, and each state isn't as strong as the other. So you have to have a standard across the nation for your education system. If we don't have that, then you have a vastly different education standard. The education standard in Louisiana isn't going to be the same in Delaware.
at all.
And to that point, that is so detrimental to children, to students, because how, let's say that I get a job, I work here in North Carolina and our standard is here, but then I get a job that I have to take an offer that's in that's in Louisiana. The education isn't going to be the same. So then who's hampered? My child.
Hmm.
The states that have between the states and their funding, you're going to have this inequality where wealthier states become better funded education, have better funded education systems, and these poorer states are going to struggle because they do not have the federal support. There is nothing to support those things. You think about these rural areas. There may be a diamond in the rough in a rural area where there's a really talented, smart kid, but because of the state that he lives in or she lives in, they won't be able to have access to certain things that could enable them to become the next engineer, to become the
Yeah.
next scientist, to become the next lawyer, or become an astronaut. Because sorry, mom and dad, you live in a state where the education system is so poor because now is given back to the state versus having a federal agency to make sure and mandate that the state operates at
In a
least
certain
at
way.
this level. You lose that.
Well, you look at that, and then you watch that same change internally within the state. Take Robertson County in North Carolina,
Yeah.
one of the poorest counties in North Carolina. You take away their Title One and their other special education funding,
Yeah.
they could end up seeing their per student funding fall by over 30% per student.
God. See, I,
And
I, I
it
understand the move. But and this is what people have to understand. If you're going to ask for something, you have to understand the full scope, the whole implication of what you're trying to do.
well,
You
and
can
then I'm
have
like,
control, but you don't have to dismantle. You could just be involved.
so the two questions I have from this is on top of all the other questions. I'm going to stop saying the two questions I have because
The
it's clearly
questions.
the questions because I got a lot of them. Is first the if I understand it correctly, the budget requests from the Department of Education last year
Hmm.
was I don't say this to make the number insignificant
Yeah.
because I know the impact that it has locally.
Hmm.
But $90 billion, bro.
Mm.
How much have we given to Ukraine? If we're trying to save money, let's stop the war.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
maybe we're not writing a check over 60, 70, 80, 90 billion to Ukraine for the war that they're fighting. That's the first question. So is this really about money? And then the
Yeah.
second question, what what is it that the Department of Education does that you disagree with?
Yeah. Bruh.
Like help me understand that. Like that's the part that I
Yeah.
don't like. Is it the Pell Grants?
Yeah.
Is it school safety and mental health? Is English, English teaching English as a second language?
Yeah.
Is it the career and technical training, so the vocational training? And I $1.4 billion of that
Yeah.
request in 2024 was for that vocational training that you hear a lot of people saying, yes, yes, we need more of it. Well, now we're talking about not funding it at all. Is it charter schools? Because I thought we love
Yeah.
charter schools. Is it getting teachers and helping teachers for their prep and professional development? You got an issue with that? Is it education, research, and innovation? Trying to figure
Yeah.
out new ways to teach kids? What is it that really just bothers you? Or is it the thought that somebody in Washington, D.C., that has
Hmm.
years of experience in education is
Yeah.
making a decision that would impact everybody? Because if that
Well,
bothers you, then the executive orders that Donald Trump is signing weekly at this point should bother you,
hmm
because it's the
it's the same
same
thing.
bureaucrat
Yeah.
in Washington, D.C., making decisions for you and your family. So where
Yeah.
are we drawing this line?
And I think that when people come for the performance or the results of our education system, I think that you're targeting the Department of Education is not valid, because
Mm-hmm.
if they set the guideline, ultimately it's up to the state and the local officials to act out and carry out those said things.
Yeah.
So if that is the case, your problem should be with your state, not with the Department of Education, because they're just setting the standard. It's up to North Carolina, it's up to Louisiana, it's up to Colorado, it's up to the state to uphold those
Mm-hmm.
standards and make sure. So if you're trying to say that the issue with the Department of Education, maybe you want to say that you it's not operating efficiently or effectively in that manner, that still does not equate to dismantling.
And you hinted on it before. You didn't hint. You talked about it. I'm going to add a cherry on top of that.
Okay.
I grew up in Colorado.
Yeah.
Did my education Denver public schools, then went to private schools for a while. Moved here when I was in high school. The Civil War, to my knowledge, up to this point, had always been called the Civil War. And I was like,
Hmm.
yes. It wasn't until I moved to North Carolina that I heard somebody refer to it as the War of Northern Aggression. And I said, what? Hold on. What?
Wait a minute.
Time out. Time out. Time out. What? Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. The North got mad and invaded the South because we wanted our own. You're like, oh, they were the North was infringing on your rights. That
Hmm.
slavery was bad. That enslaving another person was that no. It was about taxes. Yes, the
On this.
non-taxes you didn't have to pay because of the work the slaves were doing. What?
Bruh.
But I'm like, you're talking about standards like that where
Yeah.
things would be talked about wildly. Your child getting an education in rural Mississippi is
Yeah.
going to look already looks different than somebody
Yeah.
who lives in the San
Already. Yeah.
Fernando Valley.
Hmm.
But we see a potential
Wildly different.
of it becoming larger and more problematic. If you
Yeah.
look at the current budget of the Department of Education, 45% of it is on equity based funding and special education.
Yeah.
40% is about college access. 5% is pilot programs, data systems, and equity enforcement. 5%. And 10% miscellaneous grants and support. Where is the problem?
Yep.
Where?
I can't spot it. I don't, and I think that, going to what you were just saying, and one of the risks that I think that comes with this dismantling is the political manipulation at the state level. I believe that
Yeah.
becomes a very serious problem, because, and we see some of the manipulation in North Carolina, not necessarily from the education perspective, but we've seen just some of the shifts and changes and policies to change up power and what have you. But local governments can introduce policies that align with their political agendas rather than educational best practices. I think that is a major issue. I mean, a major issue when your curriculum becomes more politicized, over history, science, sex education, everything becomes so extreme. So then think about that. Without a standard, let's say you live in Mississippi and, Mississippi is a red state. Let's say that their curriculum is politically motivated and manipulated. Let's say that family ends up moving to a blue state. That kid comes in and they're gonna be like, yo,
Lost. You don't know if the
first of
day
all,
is
the kid's
coming or
gonna be
going.
like, where did y'all find this dude? Because he coming in talking. Think about like kind of the point you just said about how you always heard it was a civil war, and then now you came and you heard it was the war on northern aggression. Think about how wide that gap is when this kid comes in talking some crazy propaganda type stuff, and he moves from a red state to a blue state. They like, yo, what is this kid talking about? Oh, And mind you, he is so far behind where we're at on the education standard because his state didn't have the same standards that we have. So he comes in talking crazy.
Right.
And he's not even on the same level. So what eighth grade looks like in North Carolina ain't gonna be what eighth grade looks like in Mississippi. So then when these kids go to college, how can you expect a child to perform on the same level when they didn't all kids in college come from various places in the state. So how in the world is it going to be possible for all these kids to be able to gather or integrate or come together? I don't understand it.
Well, geez, I think I got something for our
Uh-oh.
tinfoil hat community.
Uh-oh. Here, oh,
Uh,
here we go.
You unlock this door with the key of imagination.
Uh-oh.
hey, here we are. The key of imagination, and
The
we're
key of
here.
imagination.
So, look, I'm not saying this is the plan. I'm also not saying this is not the plan.
Okay.
But, if we look at what if the goal of this is to really just make sure there are more workers?
Bruh, I've been saying that, bruh. I've been
What if the
saying it.
goal is to, okay, so we are now moving out all the illegal immigrants. We're going to close
Yep.
off immigration.
Yep.
We don't need everybody going to these college. We don't need
Bingo.
everyone targeting corporate America. We need people in these new manufacturing.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're not expanding ideas, if we're not really in that, because honestly, if you look at the transition that the United States has gone over, we've gone from being a manufacturing powerhouse that we saw in the early 1900s to really being a thought engineering thought engineering nation, an idea generation. We come up with the ideas that are then manufactured other places. We outsource the manufacturing of things so we can spend more time thinking about solutions. But you can't have all that now. So let's just kind of close some of these doors. Not saying that's the plan, but if I threw my tinfoil hat on,
Hey.
I can see the pieces.
Bruh, I'm telling you, I have said it that I really think I was explaining this to somebody, and they probably looked at me like I for sure had a tinfoil hat because when they brought up this, I was like, just hear me out. This is the plan. If all of these people are gone, who's going to work these jobs? Nobody, no American wants to do any of these jobs, right? None of us would sign up willingly to go do any of the jobs that the immigrants that we have or that we're deporting that we're
Not for the prices they're paying today.
But if you make it to a point where I don't have a choice,
Right.
what choice do I have? If it's either once I graduate high school, I can't. College is not obtainable for me. The only thing I can do is manufacturing jobs or going back to doing some of the things where my father-in-law sits around sometimes and he talks about how they would man tobacco fields and do all this stuff. And I'm like, it sounds so 100 years ago, but it was only 50, 60 years ago.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I'm like, is this what Trump means when he says make America great again? Because my father was like, we were poor and we didn't even know it. We had a good time shuckling pennies and going into the corner store to get a soda and a cookie for 5 cents. Like,
Right.
is that what we're going back to? Is that the great that we're going to? It seems like it to me, but I think that when you start targeting the Department of Education and the education system just in totality, I believe this is where your issue comes up with. And something you said earlier, when you think about the federal funding that these schools get, in eight it generally in a breakdown 8 to 10% of it comes from federal funding, their funding. Most of it comes from the state and most of it comes from local. But if you take away that 8 to 10%, and that's just a standard, some I'm sure are more. I believe I looked at one previously where it was like 14%, but still, if you take away that 14% or that 14% or that 10% is diminished by 2%, 3%, then that funding has to be made up somewhere else. from either
somewhere.
the state funding or the local funding. So then that reallocation that you're doing is shifting things that becomes a responsibility that has to be made up on others. Well, that state funding and that local funding comes from income tax, sales tax, lottery revenue, property taxes.
Yep,
So then now do those things need to be raised more to make up for the
absolutely.
lack? But that's problematic. So that's where, going back to what you said, so then what is your problem with the department? Because from what I see, the only thing that every time I hear about dismantling it, it's about control. If control is the thing, I don't believe dismantling is your solution.
Yeah. Well, and I see other people being like, hey, because if you look at a state like California,
Yeah.
extremely populous, is it likely? I've not done the math, but is it likely that part of the taxes that I paid is going to California? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's very likely. But
Yeah.
then that just brings me back to the question, what do I disagree with that the
Mm-hmm.
Department of Education is doing today? And I'm having trouble finding it.
Yeah. I can't
So
spot the knot.
yeah,
So the work is he's put in the order. Linda McMahon, shout out to ECU alumni, Linda McMahon. I hope that in all of this dismantling, you'll still make sure that good old East Carolina gets what they need for their funding. But yeah, it's going to be it's going to be a hassle, man,
it's
with
going to be
him.
interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting, and I think that as Congress tries to work to see if they can potentially get the votes, that'll be interesting as well too, because we've seen from the government bill that was passed a week or two ago how some of those Republicans, I mean Democrats that sided with the Republicans on passing that, how they were kind of slapped on the hand a little bit for. So I wonder how that will affect some Democrats in voting potentially if it makes it to the floor on dismantling the
Yeah.
Department of Education. So,
My closing thought on this is I feel almost the same way about this as I do about abortion. A little bit different though.
yeah,
Where are the teachers?
yeah,
Why are we making
just
decisions without teachers and education professionals at the forefront?
I totally agree. Um, those they are the ones that are going to be impacted, and I think you've seen on certain news and media outlets that they have interviewed some of those that are in the education field, teachers, principals, and what have you, and a lot of them, even some that have voted for Trump, was like, yeah, we don't want this. Maybe more efficient, yes, but
At
completely
what cost?
dismantling, yeah, I don't think that's something that the people want. But we'll see. We will see
Yeah.
what happens, man. So on that note, we'll move right over into our next topic. First of all, I want to say as we go into this next topic, well, let me introduce it. On March the 19th, the Federal Reserve announced that they would maintain federal rates within the target range of 4.25% to 4.5%. Now, I want to say this before we start on it. I've never met a white man named Jerome.
Never. Never met him.
So I have to believe that Jerome Powell
Got a
is
level
an
of
all right
swag.
man with me.
He got some swag.
He may can come to the cookout. I can't imagine a white woman somewhere in the 60s gave birth to this man, somewhere in the 50s and 60s, gave birth to this man, and when they said, "Man, what would you like to name your son?" She said, "Jerome." Bruh, I for the life of me, I've searched every mountain and I've searched every valley, and I cannot find a white man named Jerome.
in
And
1953
bruh, I,
said
I can't I can't for the life
Jerome.
of me, bruh. Jerome Powell. Shout out to Jerome Powell, bruh. But
Jerome Hayden Powell.
oh yeah, bruh. He might have some black in him, bruh.
Right. And hold on, but he has five siblings: Susan, Matthew, Tia, Libby, and Monica.
Bruh, how do you
Angel.
end up
How do
with
you
the
end up with the
the
name
blackest name
Jerome?
out of all of you and your siblings? Like I can see if he was the only child.
Right.
he got the blackest name,
Right.
bro. So shout out to Jerome, but he announced on the 19th that he was holding the rates, and of course, that didn't make Big Donnie happy. President Trump has expressed his dissatisfaction in the Fed's decision to maintain the interest rates, advocating instead of rate cuts to counteract the economic impact of his administration's tariffs. What's your thoughts on it, Manny?
I think Jerome. Look, I think Jerome made the right play.
I think he did too.
We don't know, and
Yep.
we don't have enough stability
Yep.
to project what's coming next. So they can
Yep.
even do calculations to see, oh, okay, well this move will have this impact. So if we cut rates here, this is how it'll play out. We don't have any of that information. Why? Because tariffs get thrown on Monday,
Yep.
rescinded on Tuesday,
Yep.
back on by Thursday,
Mm-hmm.
taken off by Friday, announcement of new tariffs on Saturday. No one knows. Like, again, we talked about it last episode. There's no level of consistency that anyone can
Mm-hmm.
check or plan for.
Yep.
And the Fed, I think people forget the Fed's purpose. Fed has two purposes:
Mm-hmm.
protect jobs, continue growth, and control inflation. That's it.
Yep.
They don't even per se care about the GDP all that much. What
Yep.
do the jobs numbers look like? What does inflation look like? And guess what? They're both not looking great. But
Mm-hmm.
there's been other decisions made that would make it even worse.
Yep.
So it's kind of like, what do you want him to do? This is his job. This is his job title. You want him
Mm-hmm.
just to cut rates just because you're not happy with them? And I get it. I would very much like rates to be cut.
Oh, for sure.
I I need that. Look, I know we're never going to get back to 2% rates unless a lot of bad things happen all at once,
Yeah.
or over the progression of another couple months. So maybe maybe I'll have a chance later on this year. Hopefully not, but I know we're not going to see 2% rates anymore.
Yeah.
But like, what are you trying to do? Like, it, you know, I'm no, I'm gonna let that. I'm just let that sit for. I'm gonna let that sit for a second. I'm gonna let it sit for the second. But we're in a bad like.
Yeah.
Okay, so numerically, the United States economy is not in the worst shape.
Yeah.
Like we're still. I think the GDP numbers are around 2.3%. So we're still growing. Unemployment is still at, if you look over the consistent life of us taking that measurement, it's not the lowest it's ever been, but it's still
Yeah.
relatively low. So things are theoretically stable,
Yeah.
but things don't feel good.
Yeah.
And I
One of the
think
things.
that, oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say one of the things that Powell did say is that he emphasized on this cautious stance that future policy decisions will be data dependent and consider on the balance of risk to the economic outlook. And I think
Yeah.
that's the thing that I shout out to Jerome Powell because he's doing his
He's not
job.
backing down.
Yeah, he's doing his
He's not
job.
backing down.
Yeah, his job is, and I think that in the future, I mean, excuse me, in the past, Trump has stated how the president should have say so in this arena, and I don't agree with that, and I'm glad that Jerome is standing his ground because while things aren't good, but things aren't bad. Essentially, going forward, things could be, and then where would that put the position of the country had he, be so quick-handed to do what the president wants him to do?
Well, and it's not like the economy, things aren't flashing concerns. I think we're
Yeah,
seeing at repossession rates with cars climbing, new home sales falling, home sales in general falling, and the piece of news that came out last week that had me like, oh yeah, we're cooked.
mm-hmm.
Well, we're not cooked, but we're heading down that
We
pipeline.
preheat.
Right. Someone said, let me go warm up this oven. Is DoorDash having partnered with Klarna to offer buy now and pay later?
Bruh.
And look,
Bro, we can't be in a good state if we got to do
we
that.
I understand adding choice to the consumer.
Yeah.
I understand that. But my concern is, putting on my Dave Ramsey cap very briefly,
Bruh.
is people now taking on debt, bro, for a Big
Mm-hmm.
Mac meal because you were drunk and you knew you needed that sit on your stomach, and now like, oh, I'll
Bruh.
pay for it later. Like I understand the flexibility. I think this is a big win for Klarna,
Mm-hmm.
because I think they're prepping for an IPO. But this can't be a good sign.
No, I
It can't
can't.
be if I have to pay later for a meal.
Yeah. Now,
Like, this is
I will say
problematic.
that the important part of that is that the order has to be over $35, which is still crazy. And your three options are you could pay in full, you could pay in four. This just sounds crazy to me. Four equal interest-free installments, or you could pay later, depending on your personal financial schedule. I think that, to your point, if this is something that we have to entertain, we as an economy can't be in the best spot.
I just wanted to note one thing, and I think it's key with the $30 limit.
Yeah.
So for those of you joining the pod in our friend group, I think I'm the boozy friend.
Yeah.
I'm the boozy friend. So I've been doing what DoorDash and food
Bro.
delivery services since
Since
what
they were made available.
2019, right?
Since
Like
they were made available.
I remember we were having a cookout at my spot, and I was like, "Dang, I need some pepper and some
Bro,
salt,"
oh
like
my
because we just
God.
didn't have it, and or we didn't have enough. We were gonna run out. So
Yeah.
I'm out there on the grill. I was talking to G's. I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, well, no worry." Had to be like 15 minutes later. Knock, knock, knock. I remember the look that all my boys gave me. He's like, "You just had that delivered?" I'm like, "Yeah,
Bro.
yeah.
I,
Why? It came to me. What? I
Bruh,
had
the
to leave."
wildest thing I ever experienced in my life is seeing this man DoorDash some salt and pepper when he lives around the corner from the
From a
grocery store.
Walmart.
He waited 15 to 20 minutes for salt and pepper where we could have been back and had it in five. I was like, yo, this
And look,
this man is wild.
everyone was comfortable. I wasn't trying to break up a good time because we needed salt and pepper. Nah, just go ahead and bring
Bruh.
that up to the crib. And while you at it, send me some sugar and
Yep.
some honey, and give me, go ahead and pick up these other couple things.
Yo, wild, bro.
But
But
all that being said, I have a family.
yeah.
If we just go to a restaurant normally,
Hmm.
it's going to be over $35.
Oh, it definitely is.
So I'm like, it's great to have a limit, but people. I feel the same way that I feel about these pay-as-you-go services as I feel with like payday loans.
Yeah.
I feel like they're a long-term trap,
Yep.
and if this is becoming more of an option, then is it really about flexibility, or is it about overall need of the American people that they can no longer afford to live and function?
Hmm.
So the economy, the economy is good numerically. It does not
Yeah.
feel good, and the constant turmoil between our trade partners that are going to affect prices and whatnot are not making people feel any better. And to what you said before, Jerome is doing a great job of
Hmm.
navigating that pressure against the fear, against the facts. And we will see.
Yeah.
Because
We'll see what happens.
what it's rumored now that April 2nd, there's going to be a global tariff that we're going to put on everybody.
What?
Well, yeah, will it come into effect? Will it not? No one knows.
Jesus Christ.
No one
Lord
knows, and no one can plan, and this is a problem.
Jesus, just put your sandals on and come on down here, man.
I mean, he's got to be looking for him at this point, right?
You know how it is when your mom call and be like, "Hey, come to the car and get these groceries." You start looking for your shoes. Like,
Let
let me go
go
on ahead
get
and get these.
him.
At this point, just grab any shoes you
Any
see.
shoes.
It ain't
We
got to
don't
be
care.
your sandals, Jesus.
We ain't going to really be paying attention to what shoes you got on.
Yeah, just come on out here.
But we don't need you. I know the Moses 3 just came out. We
Bruh.
you ain't got to be that fresh.
Nah,
Fresh
just
money coming through the spot.
whatever house shoes you have is
Just
be
go
just
go with
fine.
us.
So shout out to Jerome. Jerome, if you listen to this episode, hey, you can come on the pod and let the boys know how'd your mama come up with Jerome? I'm
That's
I'm
what we
interested.
want. That's what we want to know.
That's
I
what I'm
need to
more
know this
interested.
answer.
I ain't worried about the job you're doing. You're doing your job well, brother. I am intrigued to know how this white woman came up with Jerome for your name. So let the boys at the pod know.
Yes, we got questions.
So that is it for us on the economy. So before we get into our pickle of the week, we have one more topic that we want to bring up, and that is centered around a couple of, well, I guess two executive orders that really have canceled each other out. Those executive orders are Executive Order 11246, which is actually issued by President Lyndon B. Johnson in 1965. And if you're not familiar with this executive order number, which you wouldn't be because
It was in 1965.
but the purpose of this executive order was to this order prohibits federal contractors and subcontractors from discriminating in employment decisions based on race, color, religion, sex, and national origin. That was signed again in 1965. President Trump has signed Executive Order 14173, which was issued on January of 2025. I
Yeah,
want to say
2025. Yep.
2025. But this order focused on preventing diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives in federal agencies and limiting race-based hiring policies. So something that was put in place by Lyndon B. Johnson. And if you are unfamiliar with President Lyndon B. Johnson, he was very instrumental in civil rights, making sure that those that he deemed were discriminated against, that there were policies put in place to eliminate the discrimination and the segregation that was taking place in this country, to give everyone a fair chance. And now Trump
Hmm.
has taken that away. So,
Well,
what are your thoughts on it, brother?
bro. Okay, so let's go back to 246. So the 246 or the
Yeah.
LBJ. All this orders, I won't say all, but when we look at these two orders in context with each other, the original executive order was just basically saying, hey, federal government, y'all can't do business with companies and contractors that
Mm-hmm.
segregate or misclass their users, their users and employees. If they do any of those practices, you can't work with them.
Yeah.
Trump's order has essentially said, yes, you can now do
Business
do
with 'em.
business with them.
Yeah.
Here's where I want to take a deep breath before everyone provides that internet overreaction. Segregation is still illegal from federal law.
Mm-hmm.
But man, if we're not just slowly eroding protections
Yep.
and other incentives for people to not do that, and it's like, why? Like, I understand, hey, we want this on merit. We want we want businesses to be able to, the federal government to be able to select people just based on who's the best, not on any of these woke policies. I don't believe being woke was a thing in 1965, but, cook, as
Yep.
the young folks say. Okay. So it's concerning. It's concerning, and it can very much be seen as an erosion of protections that have been set up, and
Yeah.
because this was really just more of an incentivization. Is that a
Mm-hmm.
word? I
I
don't know.
think.
We're gonna roll with that today. Incentivization of, hey, if you're going to segregate, you can't do business with us. So it's concerning. We'll see how it plays out, but it's still legally, segregation is illegal in the United States.
But to me, it's almost doing the same thing like what he's doing with the Department of Education. Like, can't be dismantled but it's close enough, you know what I mean, to the
Right.
fact of it possibly being able to be done. And my thing is when you say merit based, it apparently being white is a merit. So when they say merit based, I believe that's the key, because these things are set up to make sure that the people that are qualified but may be a person of color or maybe a woman or may have a disability is being looked at to make sure that happens, versus saying, nah, you even though you're qualified, we're gonna go with this guy over here who, though he's not as qualified as you are, he has a little bit of qualification, and he's the CEO's nephew or something like that.
Right.
So,
Right. It,
uh-oh.
man, I don't
Do I,
forgot
do,
where I was.
I was about to
My brain locked up like a bad transmission.
say,
I
do you gotta you, do,
Man, I don't even
do
know
I
where
need
I was going, man. I don't even know where I was going,
ah.
man. Yeah, I lost it. I lost it. Pod, it was a good one. I was like, ooh, I should have wrote it down. I should have wrote it down. But uh, yes, now I remember what it was. So
do I need to cue it up?
yeah, go ahead and cue it up. So
Uh-oh, we got another one.
for our good people,
You unlock this door with the key of imagination.
the key of imagination is back, y'all. So for our tinfoil hack community,
Hey,
are y'all just trying to bait a fight?
bruh.
Because like again, still federally illegal. Cannot do it. You
Yep.
know, and if I look at the time, I had to go look at the timing and about when this executive order was signed versus when the other civil rights legislation had also come into effect. But like it's almost as if you're trying to bait a fight.
Mm-hmm. What fight is that, brother?
Look, I'm gonna let the listeners put put that together for themselves. But it's almost like someone's trying to bait a fight. But
Hey,
y'all do what you do. I'm not fighting. There's some really retailers that I won't be shopping at, but I, for one, am not going to be baited by this particular one. But eyes are watching. Eyes
yep.
are watching.
Yeah, man. It's I think that ultimately, and this goes back to a lot of what people are saying, is this where you're trying to take us back to? This place where, I saw this interesting tweet, not tweet, excuse me, this TikTok where this black lady was talking, and she was like, at this point, you know what? Let's just be segregated. Like, I mean, let's stop all the back and forth. Let's stop all the tiptoeing around the bush. This is what y'all want. Let's just be segregated. And it made me think, and I had a conversation with somebody about this. And when we look at history, uh, there was a time uh that we were separate. And when you look throughout history, anytime uh that we've been able to, as far as people of color have been able to excel, there was something that took place that pushed us back down to square one, and we weren't able to make the steps necessary. We had Black Wall Street. We had
Yep.
all these things that were we were very fine being on our own. But then there's almost this lack of, I guess there's a sense of jealousy in power, and then that's torn down, and it's like you don't want us apart, but you don't want us like to have our own. So
Right.
what is it that you want? And I came down to the thought that maybe it's just control.
Look, man, people do wild things for control.
Yeah, maybe it's just control. And when I think of this, of what Trump is doing, is this just being able to take back the power and control of these spaces that are owned and occupied by people, to say, I have control, I have space, I have power over this space, that if I don't want you, I have every right, no matter how qualified you are, I can say that I don't want you here.
Right. Well, look at there's four. big areas where I think there are real world consequences of this.
Okay.
First is for federal contractors. This means
Hmm.
that there's less oversight and it can embolden some people to do some things unless they are very directly challenged.
Yeah.
Workplace diversity efforts, as we know, DEI across the federal government is gone essentially. So you have less institutional support, a marginalized group.
Hmm.
In terms of enforcement of the existing civil rights law, you're going to either need the Department of Justice to do investigations under Title VII, or you're going to have to, you know, do private lawsuits against companies and other contractors to make sure people are in compliance. And then just overarchingly public trust. Like the polarization over the federal government's roles in civil rights is going to be big. And that's why a
Yeah.
lot of people are able to trust the federal government with some of these actions because they have these internal checks and balances. All of that is potentially in threat. Now,
Yeah.
the supporters of this effort does say this is duplicative,
Hmm.
and they're just trying to streamline. But
We'll see.
people have real reactions to things that are happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it is completely valid for people to feel the way they feel about things, especially if they've had an expectation of how this is going to run. We've
Yeah.
said this on previous episodes that there's an expectation of how the federal government operates and the consistency. I think we had the this is off topic but kind of on topic at the same point. We have people in Washington that are that out of touch.
Yeah.
When we look at the Treasury, I think Lutnick, he was a small
Yeah.
business. Lutnick, he was out there, he was doing an interview, and he was like, "Hey, if my 92-year-old mother missed a Social Security check, she would just think, oh, something is wrong. I'll get it next month." And he was like, somebody who's trying to, the bad guys, the con men, they'll know it's missing and they'll make a call because they're scheming for money.
Yeah.
No, people need to buy groceries.
Right. Like,
If I don't have groceries, look, I do very well for myself, and it is all by the grace of God.
hmm.
But trust and believe that if on the 15th and the 31st, that check ain't hit the account, do
Oh,
I
yeah.
need the money right then? Maybe, maybe not. But I'm gonna make a call. Hey,
Y'all lying over there? Y'all,
y'all good? It's coming tomorrow, right? Like, my check could be $5 off negatively, and I'm gonna have some questions. Well,
oh yeah.
where's my $5?
Yep.
So I think it's the consistency, and not everyone is frankly in the position that as a 92-year-old person could miss a check
Yeah.
and then wait and have the other one, and
Yeah.
also have the family support that they're able to cover any needs that
Yeah.
that person might have.
That's
So
out of touchness.
it's super out of touch.
Yeah.
But hey, whatever. MAGA.
Whatever.
Here we go. It's
I think that, when you think about this, a great point that you made, Manny. People have real feelings and real emotions to these things. And I feel as though with everything that's going on from just in totality, from the deportations to certain executive orders, I just feel like the real feeling of does the country, does the leader care about me? Not just people of color, but women, special needs, those that are of the minority. And I think sometimes we forget minority is not just people of color. That there's other things that pertain to that. And I just think that when you see certain things like this, why?
right,
That's what my question is always. Why? This is something that's going on. You didn't see this as an issue in your first term. Why?
right.
Why did you feel the need to sign this executive order? Realizing the real feeling and implication of what this, though you may say one thing, you signing this, what does this truly speak to what your agenda is?
And I think that's a big point about knowing that you care. One of the big, I would say, probably turning points of George Bush's presidency very early on
Yeah.
was on 9/11 when he went to ground zero and climbed up on the rebel and grabbed that megaphone and said, I hear you. The people around here hear you. And soon the
Yep.
people who did this are going to hear you.
Yep.
People don't care what you know until they know that you care. And
100%.
so we'll see how it goes. But yeah.
Well, I'm sure that we'll have another executive order by next week. So,
If one hasn't come in while we were recording.
they be coming in fast, boy. But with that being said, we are at our favorite segment of the episode, and that is our pickle of the week.
We've got your pickle. We've got your pickle. We've got your pickle.
All right, all right.
Who's in the brine?
Our pickle of the week is none other than Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. Chuck's in a pickle, man. It's been reported that this week he has been having to field the calls of him being asked to step down from his post. And that ain't good.
It's not good.
Nancy Pelosi came out and criticized him, and I believe you said the same thing in the previous episode that him siding with the government bill, essentially just giving it
For
no
nothing.
fight, no nothing.
Nothing.
He didn't get a 6th or 7th round pick back. He just gave it up. And
Right, you could at least got like some budget allocation in 2047. Like
he could have made sure that when they had the bill the first time and they were trying to get that increase in pay, he could have made sure that was on the bill. Something. You could have got another. You could have asked for espresso machine in the
look on the 3rd floor. The Keurig ain't Keurig anymore.
No,
so
you could.
We need some more K cups.
You could have got something. We off on Fridays, and every last Friday of the month we get a food trucks and stuff, bro. You could have done something, but no, he gave it away for cheap. And ever since then, there has been a lot of talk amongst the Democratic Party of him needing to step down. Now, if he does happen to step down, there's potential for the Senate Minority Whip, Senator Durbin. Could potentially be a leading candidate, and we expressed up here that we thought that there was also some rumblings of AOC, and then there's also been some talk of the potential candidate being Chris Murphy from Connecticut. So some people that they say that has a more progressive voice within the party that would help them get a little bit of a better backing as far as their leadership. So I don't see these calls backing down anytime soon. Especially,
oh no, absolutely not. Like
yeah.
If you look earlier, so right now, AOC is out on a tour with Bernie Sanders.
Oh yeah.
And in Colorado, they had 35,000 people turn out to see them speak. Yeah.
Wow. See, I think I seen a video clip of that where she walked out, and I was like, "Yo, that was a nice little crowd they had."
Crowd.
Yeah. So with that being said, man, and when you see that Bernie's touring around, AOC's out there. We talked about in a previous episode about how she's becoming taking more of a leadership tone. And we see this turning of the tide where it could be very well possible that he may be pressured to take down the post, man. So he's in a bit of a pickle, man. He I think he made I feel like he made the right decision, but he just walked away with just nothing. And that was, I think ultimately you were going to have to vote for it anyway, but at least give some type of fight. And that just looks bad on your leadership,
And I don't think it was just the fact that he voted for it. I think it was he talked big game and said, yeah, that's it. that was it. They called his bluff hard,
bro. Brother Chuck, I'm sorry,
You in
brother,
a,
but
you in the
you're in a
brine.
pickle, man. I don't know how this gonna turn out for you. But yeah, man, thoughts and prayers. Better you than me.
Far better than you than me.
So that is our pickle of the week. So as we've reached the end of our episode, we always like to give you the listeners our spotlights of the week. So Manny, what is your spotlight of the week?
Man, so I'd like to come on back home and
Okay.
talk about a couple things that are working its way or have worked its way through our legislature. First, we'll start with the more interesting one that we'll watch and see how this plays out. But there's been a bill in North Carolina to legalize marijuana and to expunge the records of people who have marijuana crimes.
Hey, hey.
I don't think this will go any. Well, I've been shocked.
I
I've
was
been
about to say,
shocked before. I've been shocked before. I'm in the belief of a couple things around this is that first and foremost, and I would carry this across every single state. If you are going to do legalization, then the criminal restoration has to be part of this as well.
yeah, yeah,
The expungement and addressing those issues. And I'm not talking about the people who are moving 400 pounds of
yeah,
marijuana. Clearly, no, I'm talking about, oh, you had a dime bag during a traffic stop. Like
yeah,
that's what
yeah,
I'm talking. If you don't have the criminal reconciliation tied with the legalization, then we're
yeah,
doing it wrong. So I'm
yeah,
glad those two are coupled together. The other piece on North Carolina is I've never thought that we're ever going to be able to hop immediately to recreational.
yeah,
I see it taking a path that it would go through medicinal, and then eventually we would see that. So I don't believe anything will happen with this bill, especially with the makeup of the current legislature. But I've been wrong before.
yeah.
But that's not the big one. The big one is there was a new hurricane relief bill.
Okay.
The North Carolina General Assembly signed off on $524 million of Hurricane Helene relief. Of that, 120 million for housing rebuilds, 100 million for roads and bridges. I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. Let me fix those numbers. What yeah, sorry, what was approved? 120 million for housing, 100 million for roads and bridges, 310 million for agriculture, not only for just Helene but the other pass. We're still across the state dealing with the effects from Hurricane Matthew.
Wow.
So we're still recovering from that. And then there was also an additional 217 million for past other hurricane projects. So a lot of money, but it was far less than
Mm-hmm.
what Governor Stein had requested. Governor Stein had requested upwards of 800 million towards $1 billion worth of aid. And it didn't happen. So about 100 million less in housing rebuilds, more in agriculture, and a little bit more in past hurricane projects. But I think this is going to be a very interesting yet telling sign of what the first couple of years of Governor Stein's term in North Carolina is going to look like.
Yeah.
Doesn't have the House, doesn't have the Senate, and they're pretty much just going to figure out what they want and do that and hand it over to them. So it'll be interesting to see how Josh Stein over the rest of this long session plays through that. Because we're getting ready to come into budget season, and I have not seen his budget request yet, plan for the state for this fiscal year, but we'll see the difference between what he asked for. Obviously, he's going to be like, we know the areas that every governor asks for, relief, education funding, teacher pay, state employee pay. But we'll see what the legislature puts together to send over to him and what ultimately gets signed. So as North Carolina gets deeper into this longer session, we'll start seeing things like that starting to play out. So those are my two spotlights.
Hey, okay. Well, one I
What
have,
you
well,
got?
more of a shout out. Shout out to the Pope because I believe he's getting
He's out.
discharged. He's out.
He got discharged.
Hey, so free the
Free
Pope.
free to Pope.
until it's backwards. So the Pope is going home, but also my spotlight is I just want to bring to our listeners' attention that it was reported that President Trump has issued a memorandum revoking the security clearances of several prominent figures, including Kamala Harris, Hillary Clinton, and a list of others. Liz Cheney was on that list as well, too, and Attorney General Letitia James. So
Mm,
he has this move has been widely viewed as him basically being a retaliatorial measure in 2021, because I kept wondering like why in the world is Trump doing this, and I forgot that in 2021 President Biden had prohibited Trump from receiving an intelligence briefing, citing his concerns about his behavior. So now that Trump's back in office, he's like, I
getting
bet.
petty. He's like, all right, I got you.
But I'm just bringing this to the spotlight as to shine light on how we are not in a normal state or season in our political arena.
But
It's traditional that former high-ranking officials retain their security clearances, and the reason for this is to offer counsel to current administrations. So you can see that him revoking these security clearances shows you that this how he views this and how there is a disconnect between our current administration and our past administration. It's almost like he's on an island by himself with those that are his yes men and supporters.
yep,
And I just wanted to bring that as a spotlight to show our listeners that how everything we're going through right now is just so unprecedented and it's uncharted territory. You've heard me say that on previous episodes, but everything is just uncharted territory, and it just feels and seems weird that even though you can have differences as a nation, and one thing that stuck out to me is Trump said before he was elected that he was going to be the person to unite the country, to unite our nation. And everything that he seems to be doing at this point is the opposite. So we are in very uncharted territory. I'm sure there will be more security clearances revoked. And also, I don't know if you heard about it, but there was a guy that was coming over. I believe he was a French scientist this past week,
This I know you're not.
and found out that he had kind of said some stuff against Trump.
hmm
And they said, yeah, nah, get back on over there in your own land, buddy. So
hmm
it just seems like, man, we're moving into this weird space that if you have anything to oppose against the current administration, or you view things differently, you're an enemy.
Yep.
And that is unusual, and I don't think well, it's very problematic. So we will see what more comes of him stroking of the pen and revoking security clearances, and what other measures this administration will take. So that is my spotlight of the week, and we've reached the end of our episode, man. So
Yeah.
thank you to the listeners for tuning in to episode 12 of season 2. Man, you got anything for the people, my brother?
Well, a quick announcement and another point that we'd be remiss if we didn't hit before we get off. The White House. Hey, well, it's a question for you, G's. I've just discovered a sponsorship opportunity for the pod.
Oh, okay.
Um, the White House is seeking sponsors for this year's Easter egg roll.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
And the ranges are from 75,000 to 200K. So we'll talk about it after we get off. But what am I
Bruh.
talking about? We're not doing this. I got 5. Donnie, I got 5.
Bruh, this has never happened before.
I don't recall a solicitation for sponsorships.
And if I read correctly, I think that those sponsorship, they're gonna get like advertising, branding at the
Yep.
White House. They're like, bro, this is not a little league sponsored flag football team. Like when you got the jersey with all the brands on it, bro.
Bro,
What are we doing?
if we need sponsorship for the White House egg roll, what is truly the state of our economy?
Bruh, see.
I'm just saying. I'm just asking.
DoorDash splitting up meal prices. We asking for sponsors for egg rent.
Mhm. I So that's and the other point, legend has gone on to be with the ancestors, as people will
Oh, yeah,
say.
yeah, yeah.
Rest in peace, former heavyweight champion George Foreman.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And we would like to thank you for the grill
Yeah, I might have
that
to fire mine up today
mhm,
just out of respect.
held us down many a times through college.
Oh, bro, man,
So,
a dorm room classic. But
so
definitely for the life that you lived and the legacy you left in the
yeah,
ring, we appreciate all that you've done, not just for the sport, but for our people. So,
yeah.
rest well,
Rest
rest
well.
well, legend, rest well. So, I'm good. I don't have anything
Yeah,
else. All hearts and minds clear, as
we
we always say here at the pod.
we clear
If
here.
don't nobody love you, just
Boys
know
here
the
at the
boys
pod.
here at the pod.
We love
We
you.
love you. So that is it for our episode. Take care, world, and we will see you on the next episode.